I wanted to talk about Fred Hampton because Ben and I talked about, Fred Hampton. I tell you, when I watched the movie, I watched it early and before it came out, and they told me not to say anything about it. I know everybody was enamored with the "I am a revolutionary," but for me, the line in that movie that really struck with me and stayed with me. My colleagues, two comedians, wrote that movie, was when Fred Hampton said, "We're all gonna die fighting for our people. We should be so lucky." And I
Mhm.
thought that was like the most beautiful thing. But I did want to talk about Fred Hampton and the Young Lords because I do believe that there's been a breakdown in the history that they tell us. Black and brown people have always found solidarity. A lot of times we are at the intersection of one another, and we understand the journey in a way that others that don't stand where we stand could ever comprehend. So I wanted to talk to you to hear what you had to say about Chairman Fred and that whole Young Lord experience, because I know that you've done work regarding the chairman.
Yeah, so I hope that everybody who hasn't watched it does watch Judas and the Black Messiah. If you can afford to get HBO Max or in any other ways that you can watch it. I worked from the beginning on the movie as an associate producer, and I'm incredibly
Mhm.
humbled to have been trusted by Chairman Fred and other Black Panther elders and children and Mother Comrade Akua and Jerry. It was a 3-year process to make this movie,
Mhm.
and for me, it was a great experience. There were some, like I told everyone, highs and lows. It's Hollywood, and it's interesting because some of I shouldn't say some. I got really two dope sisters that have been in my life for a long time. One is Julia Grubb, and a while ago she had done a YouTube channel, internet show about Williamsburg, Brooklyn being gentrified, like ahead of the time.
Mhm.
And then this other Boricua sister, Rachel Ramis, who was a full tenured professor and gave it up to follow her dream of being a director in Hollywood. And she is killing it right now. And she was the first person that I was like, yo, if I do this, what do I need to do to make sure that the things I want to talk about are represented, but that I'm also pay for my labor, and my sister is really good at always being like, yo, don't be on the phone with somebody that's trying to pick your brain. And I'm
Right.
like, no, that's what we do as organizers. And she's like, yeah, and people take advantage of that. So that's been like an interesting thing for me to kind of be mindful of. But as someone that was exposed to the Black Panther Party for self-defense and the Young Lords, I had to go to college to learn about them, even though I had been born, raised in the Bronx and raised in Westchester County. I had never heard of the Young Lords. I actually don't even think that I knew Puerto Rico was a colony. I just
Mhm.
knew that I was Puerto Rican and that I
Mhm.
had a great experience with my mom and my dad and my family. My mom and dad were very purposeful at instilling who we are as a people and keeping us connected to our abuelos and abuelas. So I was like, we're a colony. Like, I didn't know any of that. I had to go to college. So all that transcends into this moment in 2001 when Chairman Fred Hampton Jr., the son of Akua and Jerry and Fred Hampton Sr., had been set up and done some time and was incarcerated. And one of my really dear brothers and one of Dead Prez was like, yo, Fred's coming out. Can you do a tour? So let me tell people this was like 20 years ago, right? Like we didn't have social media and all of this. But at that time, I had realized that there were dope people around me. And I'm like, yo, people want to hear people like us speak. And I put this tour together called Dare to Struggle, Dare to Win. So I've known Fred for over 20 years. But
Mhm.
also as an academic, I do study the Black Panther Party, the Young Lords, Los Machateros, and the Black Liberation Army.
Mhm.
So when this movie was happening, I had complete agency with Charles King, Shaka King, Chairman
Mhm.
Fred, and Ryan Coogler. And I'm like, I'm so glad y'all, like, we need to represent the Young Lords Party. Because there would have been no Young Lords without Chairman Fred in this way.
Mhm.
When
Mhm.
Chacha Jimenez got arrested, when he got out, he met Chairman Fred in Chicago. And Chairman Fred Hampton Sr. was like, yo, you got to turn the street organization into a political organization. And Chacha took that on. So when people see the movie and it's brief, right? Like we see the purple berets, we see Chairman Fred speaking and see the person who's portraying Chacha next to him. This is what also Chairman Fred was brilliant when he created the Rainbow Coalition. Jesse Jackson did not create that. Chairman Fred Hampton Sr. did. And what he was talking about that, yes, there's issues on race and ethnicity, but at the end, the common enemy is capitalism. So he brought in the Young Lords, the American Indian movement, the Asian brothers and sisters that were fighting oppression, the young patriots, white young people that thought it was cool to like have a Confederate flag, but then talk about their working class conditions. And that's when he became dangerous, and that's when he needed to be assassinated. And lastly, it wasn't just Chairman Fred assassinated, it was also Deputy Mark Clark. And Chairman Fred was 21 when he was killed. Imagine the entire government seeing you as such a threat that they would plan and assassinate you at the age of 21. And they were not trying to have his child born. They knew that Mother Conrad Okuwanjeri was pregnant. She was there. 100 bullets went into that house and she survived. And 25 days later, his son, Chairman Fred Hampton Jr., was born. And that's a direct intervention of the ancestors. You know, if we could, whoever believes in whatever, I'm not a religious person, but I'm like, 100 bullets went into that house and she survived. And 25 days later, their son was born who has carried on that legacy. That's exactly what this government did not want to happen. And it happened.